Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to answer which is the better dividend stock to buy going into 2023. And of course, one of the first things you look at in a dividend stock is the dividend yield. Now, the two dividend stocks that I'm going to look at is AT&T versus Verizon. Which is the better one to buy for 2023? And looking at their dividend yields, it's very similar, very close. AT&T at 7.62% and Verizon stock at 6.98%. So if I had to give an advantage here, I would say AT&T, of course, it has a higher dividend yield. But that's not the only metrics. Let's look at three additional metrics here. The next metric I'm going to look at is the payout ratio. And if you're new to the channel, the dividend payout ratio is the percentage of earnings per share a company pays out in dividends. That measures the sustainability of the dividend, because if it spends too much on the dividend, then it might not have enough money to spend on capital investments for growth and replacements and all of that. And so you want to see a smaller dividend payout ratio if you're concerned about the longevity and sustainability. And in this regard, AT&T is at 57.87 while Verizon at 55.54. Since Verizon has the lower figure, I would say Verizon has the advantage here in terms of dividend payout ratio. The next metric I like to look at here is, it's going to be a combination here on this screen. We're going to look at revenue and earnings per share. And for companies that are paying such a robust dividend like AT&T and Verizon is, what I expect to see is stable or declining revenues and earnings per share, because if revenues were growing and it was a growth stock, the dividend yield would likely be lower, because the company would be using its cash flows, its earnings, to reinvest in the company for growth opportunities. Companies that have a high dividend yield usually don't have very many growth opportunities ahead of them. That's why they're spending the money paying a dividend instead of spending the money on capital investments. And I like what I see from both Verizon and AT&T in terms of revenue. Relatively stable over the years. Of course, AT&T is divesting from its DirecTV disaster acquisition, and so that's why you see a decline there from 2020-21. And Verizon did not have such a disaster in the most recent 3 or 4 years. And then looking at earnings per share, Verizon's has came down from over $6 to 5.32, and similar with AT&T, it's came down from over I would say close to $6, and now it's $2.76. So both in terms of revenue and earnings per share, I would say they're tied in this regard. No clear distinctional advantage from either one. And so let's move on to the final metric I'm going to consider, which is the forward price to earnings ratio, or in other words, valuation. And looking at it here, Verizon trading at a PE, forward PE of 7.1 is a little bit more expensive than AT&T's valuation of 6.8. So AT&T is cheaper than Verizon. So I would say in the forward in when measured by the forward PE. So I would give AT&T the advantage here. So AT&T has the advantage in terms of valuation. It also has the advantage in terms of the dividend yield. Verizon had the advantage in terms of the payout ratio. And then revenue and earnings per share, I gave them a tie. So to answer the question, which one is a better dividend stock to buy for 2023? Verizon or AT&T? I would say it's really close. It's really close, but I would give the advantage here to Verizon. Verizon gets the advantage because of something I haven't discussed in this video, but if you've watched one of my other videos, you will know that Verizon's implementing a cost-cutting program of up to 2 to 3 billion by 2025, and that's expected to increase earnings per share, which could ultimately result in increases in the dividends paid. And so that little thing, or not so little when we're talking about billions of dollars, but since they're so close on every other metric. That one thing I would say puts Verizon a little bit ahead in terms of deciding which one is the better dividend stock to buy for 2023. But that difference is small, right? They're very close to each other. So if you're thinking about which one is a better buy, and let's say you've got $1,000 to invest, and you're thinking about which one should you buy, Verizon or AT&T, you know what I would say the best thing to do is split it up and buy each. You know, buy 500 of Verizon and $500 worth of AT&T, right? Instead of trying to pick one or the other, they're very similar in terms of dividend yield, the valuation, the industry that they're in. So, you know, diversify and get 500 of AT&T and 500 of Verizon. But if you had to pick just one, I would say Verizon stock is the better one to pick. All right, so that's all I've got for this video. Thank you for tuning in, and I will see you next time. I want to thank the Motley Fool for sponsoring this video. Visit fool.com/Parkev for the 10 best stocks to buy now.